My 10-year-old daughter almost died after my family abandoned her during a severe allergic reaction. They didn't call an ambulance. They went on a luxury day trip with the other kids instead. I didn't shout. I took action. 3 hours later, their lives started to unravel. Mondays are supposed to start slow. Mine began with a printer jamming, someone crying in the bathroom, and a half-cold cup of coffee that tasted like pen ink. I just decided to fake optimism for another meeting when my phone lit up on the desk. Unknown number. Local area code. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut said pick up. Hello? Is this Ingrid Taylor? Yes. This is St. Anthony's Medical Center. We have your daughter, Piper Taylor. She's stable now, but she had what appears to be a severe allergic reaction. My chair scraped back. What? She's alert and talking, but we'd like you to come right away, the woman continued, steady but not unkind. Do you know where we're located? Yes, 2 hours from here. All right. Drive carefully, please. When you arrive, ask for the pediatric unit. Someone will meet you at reception. Okay, I'm leaving now. Good. We'll see you soon. Click. For a second, I just stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, hearing the faint echo of my own breath. The world had gone too quiet. My coffee was still steaming. Someone down the hall laughed. All of it felt wrong, like the sound was bleeding through from another life. Then I grabbed my bag, my keys, and moved. Not thinking, just moving. In the elevator, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I told myself it was adrenaline, not fear. Told myself Piper was fine. Stable, they'd said. Stable sounded like safety, didn't it? But even as I hit the parking lot, my heart knew better. The highway blurred. The GPS voice was calm and detached, politely guiding me through a panic attack. Turn left in 2 miles, it said, as if that were the hardest part of my day. I called Mom. Voicemail. Dad. Voicemail. Helena. Ringing. I put it on speaker and kept my eyes on the road. Helena? Ingrid, you should see this water. It looks like glass. Dad's wearing socks in his sandals again. Her happiness landed like a joke I didn't get. Wind in the background. Kids shouting something about shells. Okay, I said carefully. So you're all together? Yep. Gavin's building some kind of fortress. Lydia's stealing the flags. A laugh. Chaos, in a cute way. My mouth felt dry. Right. And Piper? What about her? Still light, still breezy. How is she? She's... Helena hesitated a fraction too long. She's fine. Fine where? I asked. At the hotel. A beat passed where the world narrowed to the lane stripes and the sound of air through the vents. At the hotel, I repeated, because sometimes saying a thing twice makes it make sense. Yeah, she said, like we were discussing luggage. She wasn't in the mood for breakfast. You know how she gets. Headaches, stomach, whatever. Mom said if she didn't want to come, she could stay and cool off. It's no big deal. My brain tried to fit those words into the shape of reality and failed. She didn't want to come. Or she couldn't. Ingrid. Helena's voice tightened. Please don't start. She was being dramatic. She said her throat felt weird and she didn't want to eat, and then it turned into a whole thing. Mom gave her a choice I swallowed, felt nothing go down. So, when you left, she was in the lobby, Helena said, sitting by the big plant. The guy at the desk knows us. The highway flickered past. Mile marker, shadow, light. Somewhere a siren far away. Inside the car, just my breathing and hers. I need to be very clear, I said, hearing how calm I sounded and hating it. You all went out. Piper stayed behind. alone. There are staff, Helena said quickly. She wasn't alone. Alone. And we're not gone forever. It's a day trip. I pressed my thumb into the steering wheel until it hurt, just to feel something that matched the word real. Helena. What? The hospital called me. Silence. Wind. A child laughing in the distance like it belonged to a different world. They said she had a severe allergic reaction, I said. She's there now. No, Helena said. Reflex, automatic, the way you say that plate won't break as it hits the floor. No, she does this. She makes it a thing and then... She couldn't breathe. My voice came out flat. Another silence, longer. When she spoke again, the wind was louder, like she'd turned her head away. Mom said... She stopped. Ingrid, are you sure? I'm on my way to her. I could hear her pull in a breath, thin and shaky. Okay. Maybe it's... I'll call you later, I said. Ingrid, wait. But I ended the call. For a few miles I drove like the road might explain itself if I stared hard enough. Sunlight flashed off other people's windshields. Everyone kept following their lanes, their rules, like the world hadn't tilted. I tried to line their words up in my head and failed. In the lobby by the big plant. We're only gone for the day. It's no big deal. Somewhere between one exit and the next, the disbelief stopped being a fog and hardened into something cold and heavy. I gripped the wheel and kept going. By the time I reached St. Anthony's, my pulse was thudding behind my eyes. Inside, too much light, too much white, too much everything. A nurse looked up. You're Piper Taylor's mom? Yes. She's doing okay now. Room 203. I didn't wait for directions. Piper was sitting up, pale, eyes glassy, an oxygen tube under her nose. When she saw me, her lip trembled. Mom. I sat beside her. Hey, sweetheart. I told them I couldn't breathe, she whispered. They didn't believe me. My throat tightened. Who didn't? Grandma. Aunt Helena. They said I was making a scene. Grandma said if I kept it up, I'd have to stay behind. Her voice wavered. Then they went. I brushed her hair from her forehead. And then? I sat in the lobby. The man at the front desk asked if I was okay. Then everything went blurry. I think he called the ambulance. Her small fingers twitched around the blanket. You did everything right, I said. Everything. Dr. Layton came in, calm, practiced. She's stable, he said. It was a strong reaction, probably a new allergy. She's lucky the staff acted fast. Lucky. That word again. If not for a stranger at the front desk, my daughter would be a headline. When she finally slept, I stepped into the hall. My phone buzzed. Dad. Ingrid, he said, already exasperated. Helena tells us you're making a fuss. She was having an allergic reaction, I said. You left her. Oh, for heaven's sake, you know how she exaggerates. She stopped breathing. A pause, then the long sigh of a man inconvenienced. Well, she's fine now, isn't she? No harm done. No harm done, I repeated. My voice sounded strange. You could have killed her. You always overreact. We raised you better than that. Toughen up. The call ended. I stared at my reflection in the corridor glass. Hair messy, eyes rimmed red, expression carved out of disbelief. Then, without meaning to, I laughed. A small, cracked sound. They'd taught me that silence was strength. Fine. They were about to learn what silence sounds like when it stops protecting them. 3 hours later, their lives started to unravel. If you want to understand why my family could leave a 10-year-old gasping for air in a hotel lobby, you have to start decades earlier, back when being tough was the only religion we practiced. We lived on a patch of land outside town, the kind of place where paint peeled faster than you could reapply it. My parents called it character. What they really meant was, you don't complain. I was 6 when I learned the rules. I fell off my bike, scraped my knee open. Mom looked at the blood, sighed, and said, "You'll live." Dad added, "If you can talk, you can walk." Helena, 4 years older, already fluent in superiority, rolled her eyes. "You're such a baby, Ingrid." So I shut up. That's lesson 1. Silence earns you survival. Helena absorbed our parents' philosophy like oxygen. She could skin her elbow and smile through it. Crying was for amateurs. She wore her toughness like armor and expected me to do the same. Once, when I was 8, I told her I had a stomachache. She handed me a spoonful of mustard and said, "Cures everything. Don't whine." I threw up 10 minutes later. She called that proof it worked. She liked being the example, proof that the system functioned. I was the control group that kept failing. Dad loved to say, "You girls will thank us one day." The world doesn't hand out sympathy. He wasn't wrong. It just doesn't hand out decency either. By the time I hit 16, I'd mastered invisibility. I smiled on cue, kept my voice low, and apologized for taking up oxygen. At family dinners, if someone asked how school was, Helena answered for me. If I spoke up, Mom corrected my grammar instead of listening. Eventually, I stopped offering anything that could be corrected. But I was watching. Every time Helena got praised for holding it together, I noticed how her jaw tightened afterward, how she blinked too fast. Even she was cracking under the weight of perfection. She just didn't know how to stop performing. I moved out the day after graduation. It wasn't rebellion. It was self-preservation. I found a small apartment an hour from home and a job in HR. Don't laugh. Yes, I became the person who mediates other people's emotional disasters for a living. I'm good at it. Turns out years of managing my parents prepared me for corporate diplomacy. At work, people cried in my office. They were allowed to. No one called them weak. I remember thinking, so this is what air feels like. One afternoon, a coworker thanked me for being so understanding. I nearly burst out laughing. Understanding was just the side effect of hypervigilance. Helena stayed close to home, naturally. She married Alan, nice enough guy, the kind who thinks turning off lights counts as romance. And together they turned the old farmhouse into a bed and breakfast. Mom and Dad practically threw a parade. Our girls are so successful, meaning Helena, obviously. I got a polite nod whenever I mentioned a promotion. They ran that B&B like a kingdom. Fresh flowers, polite smiles, and the family motto printed on invisible wallpaper, "No drama under this roof." Guests called it charming. I called it a museum of denial. Every so often, Helena would phone me for little favors. Could I help them update their business website? Could I spot them some money for a water heater until the tourist season picked up? Always temporary, always followed by, "You're such a lifesaver." I'd tell myself it was just being a good daughter, a good sister. Really, it was habit, throwing coins into the wishing well of their approval. Travis, my husband, would shake his head. "You don't owe them anything." "I know," I'd say. And then I'd send the money anyway. Piper was born 5 years later. I remember holding her and thinking, you will never have to apologize for existing. I swore she'd grow up free from the family curse. We'd talk about feelings, even the ugly ones. We'd cry if we needed to. We'd eat pizza on paper plates and call it fine. Mom called that soft parenting. Helena called it coddling. Dad called it nonsense. I called it love. Of course, family gravity always pulls you back. We still saw each other for holidays, birthdays, the occasional Sunday dinner. Every gathering was a polite reenactment of our childhood. Helena dazzling the audience, me applauding from the wings. Mom would say, "Piper's sensitive, just like her mother," the way some people say, "tax audit." Piper would flush and look at me, waiting for a rescue. I'd squeeze her hand under the table instead. I told myself it didn't matter, that words were harmless. They weren't. They were seeds, and the soil was still poisoned. Then Helena called about the trip. 3 days at the coast, she said, chipper. The kids will love it. You could use a break. I hesitated. I don't know. Piper's got soccer that weekend. Oh, come on, it's family time. You know Mom and Dad, they're getting older. She always played that card. Guilt with a smile. I looked at Piper, who was practically vibrating at the thought of beaches and cousins. I said yes, because that's what you do when you're trying to prove everything's normal. The night before they left, Piper packed her bag twice. She asked if Grandma would like the bracelet she'd made. She'll love it, I said. I almost believed it. When they drove away the next morning, I waved until their car disappeared down the street. For a moment, I actually felt grateful. Grateful they wanted her there. Grateful she was part of something bigger. I didn't know I'd just handed her to the same lesson that shaped me. The one that says feelings are lies, pain is drama, and silence keeps the peace. If I'd listened harder during that phone call, maybe I would have heard the echo of our childhood behind Helena's voice. The same casual cruelty dressed up as practicality. But you never think the story's repeating until it's too late. You never think they'll do it again until they already have. And somewhere out there, while I was still answering work emails and pretending to be functional, my daughter was sitting in a hotel lobby, learning what tough love really means. That's how we got here. I sat beside Piper's bed, watching her chest rise and fall under a mountain of white sheets. The monitor beeped like a metronome for my nerves. The doctor's words still looped. Another 10 minutes and the outcome could have been very different. Different, as in dead. I stared at Piper's hand, so small, still dotted with tape and bruises, and thought, this is what all that toughness buys you. A kid who nearly dies while everyone else takes selfies on the beach. That's when the calm hit me. Not peace, something colder. The kind of calm you get before the needle goes in. I stepped into the corridor. A nurse was charting at the desk. Do you have the local police number? I asked. She blinked, then handed me a card. Everything okay? Not even close, I called. The dispatcher's voice was polite, bureaucratic, human. I gave her everything. Names, times, hotel, what Piper had said, what the doctor told me. She asked if I was sure I wanted to file a report against family. I'm sure, I said. They made that choice first. When I hung up, my hands shook, but my voice didn't. I canceled the small payment I sent my parents every month. My ceremonial tithe for still being the good daughter. Not anymore. Back in the room, the machines hummed, steady and smug. Piper's hair was fanned out like she'd just fallen asleep after swimming. I brushed a strand from her face and whispered, "It's done." She didn't stir, but the monitor beeped on like applause. By morning, she was well enough to go home. I packed her things, thanked the nurses, drove through 2 hours of silence thick enough to drown in. It was around lunchtime when my phone finally exploded. 3 missed calls, then a flood of messages. Mom, Dad, Helena. Group call. I let it ring once before answering. Ingrid! Mom's voice hit like static. What have you done? Dad cut in, booming. You called the police on your own parents? Helena's voice layered over theirs, frantic. You've ruined everything. You didn't even talk to us first. I waited for them to breathe. I did talk to you. You called me hysterical. Remember that part? Ingrid, you're overreacting, Dad snapped. It was a misunderstanding. She's fine now. Helena added. Why can't you just drop it? Because, I said quietly, she wasn't fine yesterday. The silence on the line was almost kind. Then Mom started crying, and Dad hung up without another word. I stared at my phone until the screen dimmed, then set it face down on the table. For the first time in my life, the quiet actually felt like mine. I didn't shout. I took action, and the fallout was only just beginning. For 48 hours, I pretended the world had moved on. No phone calls, no headlines, no knock on the door. Piper's color came back, she drew again, and I convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, silence meant safety. It didn't. In my family, calm isn't comfort. It's the pause before something catches fire. I was answering emails when my phone buzzed. A text from a coworker. Hey, saw this online. Thought you'd want a heads-up link attached. The headline didn't bother with mystery. Local B&B owners named in police inquiry after child's hospitalization. I clicked it. Police in Harborview confirmed an investigation into a reported neglect incident involving the Taylor family of Meadow Ridge. The 10-year-old girl, said to be a relative, was treated for a severe allergic reaction after being left at a nearby resort. That was it. 20 lines of polite horror published for breakfast reading. They'd released my parents' and Helena's names. Of course they had. Arrests weren't made, but the investigation was public record. Halfway down the article, the family's adult daughter, who lives in the city, filed the initial report. Not my name, but it may as well have been printed in bold. I stared at the screen until the words went fuzzy. Across the room, Piper said, Mom, are you okay? Yeah, I said. Just reading the news. We're trending. By noon, the phone wouldn't stop. Helena first. Ingrid, what have you done? They used our names. The paper says the business might be investigated. I read it. You need to fix this. Call the reporter. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I don't fix reality, I said. You don't even care what this is doing to us. You mean compared to what you did to Piper? Her breath caught. You've ruined everything. Click. 10 minutes later, Mom. Ingrid, please. Reporters are calling the house. Guests are canceling. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof. Maybe he should try empathy. It lowers stress. Ingrid. You all left her alone, Mom. She almost died. This isn't bad press. This is consequence. She started to cry. I let her finish. Then I hung up. By evening, headlights crawled up the driveway. Of course they came. The doorbell rang. I opened it. Mom, Dad, Helena. 3 ghosts from the same mistake. Dad's jaw looked wired shut. You need to fix this. Evening to you too. Mom pushed forward, hands clasped. Sweetheart, people are saying terrible things. You know how gossip spreads? I do. Usually after someone does something terrible, Helena's eyes were red. We'll lose everything. The paper's quoting old guests. They're saying we abandoned a child like luggage. I raised an eyebrow. Accuracy at last. Ingrid, Mom pleaded. We made a mistake. Everyone does. Some mistakes end with funerals, I said. You got lucky. Dad's voice rose. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Finally getting payback, I laughed once. If this is payback, it's the slowest revenge in history. I just told the truth. Helena stepped closer. Please, tell them it was blown out of proportion. Say Piper's fine. She is fine. Thanks to strangers, not family. Dad snapped. You owe us. For what? The childhood trauma package or the monthly payments I already canceled? Their faces froze. I don't owe you silence anymore, I said quietly. Mom began to sob. Helena whispered, You're cruel. Maybe, but at least I'm honest. I closed the door, their voices muffled into the night, fading with the sound of their engines starting. The next morning, a new article appeared. Community reacts to neglect allegations against Seaview B&B family. A photo of the guest house sign, rain streaking the wood. Quotes from longtime patrons who suddenly remembered red flags that never existed. They seemed strict. Always prided themselves on discipline. The kind of recycled virtue that curdles fast. Halfway through, family members close to the situation declined to comment. Good. Silence finally serving its purpose. By lunch, cancellations stacked up. Travis texted from work. "Are you holding up?" I answered, "Define holding." Piper found me at the table, scrolling through emails from strangers who'd mistaken moral outrage for community service. "Grandma called again," she said softly. "What did she want?" "She said you're just tired." That's one way to put it. "She said they didn't mean to hurt me." I looked at her drawing, 2 stick figures under an umbrella, one with a blue mask. "Do you believe her?" She shrugged. "I think they think hurting people is teaching them." I nodded. "Yeah, and they always call it love." She smiled faintly. "We're different." "Yeah," I said. "That's the point." That night, I deleted the family group chat. No farewell message. Just gone. The air in the house shifted. Lighter, cleaner. Downstairs, my phone buzzed again. Another headline. Another echo. I didn't read it. I sat beside Piper's bed, listening to her steady breathing. They'd always said silence was strength. Fine. Let them live with it. For the first time, it finally belonged to me. 6 months later, the world looks different. Quieter. The Seaview bed and breakfast is gone. Foreclosed, boarded up, the sign hanging crooked in the wind. The last guests checked out right after the article naming them hit. After that, the cancellations never stopped. The investigation wrapped up 2 months ago. Mom, Dad, and Helena were each charged with misdemeanor child endangerment, official language for "you left a kid in danger and got caught." They pleaded guilty, avoided jail, and got 12 months probation, 250 hours of community service, a $1,000 fine each, and a mandatory parenting education course. They finished the course last month. I like to imagine them sitting through lectures on empathy and basic decency. Helena and Alan moved 2 towns over, to somewhere with fewer people who recognize their faces. She's working part-time at a diner. He's looking for anything that isn't seasonal. The kids are in a new school. Mom and Dad stayed behind. Too old, too proud, too broke to move. They live off savings and whatever's left of the furniture. People still nod politely to them at the grocery store, but never stop to chat. I haven't spoken to any of them since that night on my porch. News travels through cousins and gossip. I don't go looking for it. Piper's good. The allergy was nuts. First reaction, lifelong guest. She carries her EpiPen everywhere like it's a badge of honor. She knows now that if something feels wrong, she speaks up. Soft doesn't mean weak. Travis and I are good too. Normal. Peaceful, even. Sometimes I still hear that line in my head. You don't do that to family. And maybe that's true. But then again, neither do they. So what do you think? Did I go too far or finally far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more. My 9-year-old woke up on Christmas Eve and found a note. "We needed a break from you. Don't call." The whole family went to a beach resort without her. When I found out, I didn't cry. I did this. 4 days later, they found something on the kitchen table and started screaming. I woke up to my phone vibrating against the nightstand like it was trying to escape. Christmas Eve, 6:12 a.m. Too early for anything except emergencies or flights I definitely wasn't on. I grabbed it, still half tangled in hotel sheets. "Mom?" My daughter, Zara, whispered. instant adrenaline. I sat straight up. Zara? What's wrong? Silence. A tiny breath. And then, I think something's wrong. The house is empty. That sentence hit me harder than any alarm clock. I swung my legs off the bed and stood, the cheap carpet cold under my feet. I was in yet another anonymous airport hotel, an hour flight from home, because small city hospitals don't care that it's Christmas when they're drowning in flu and short on doctors. Holiday coverage is mandatory, and this week I was it. I'd told myself it was fine. I'd be back tomorrow. Zara loved my parents, her grandparents, and my younger sister Samantha was there with her kids, Owen and Quinn. Full house, built-in chaos, built-in babysitters, except now my 9-year-old sounded like she was standing at the edge of a cliff. Okay, I said, forcing my voice steady. Tell me where you are. In my room, she whispered. But it's too quiet. Not normal quiet. All right, put me on speaker, okay? We're going to walk through the house together. I heard a faint beep as she switched modes, then the rustle of blankets as she got up. Okay, she said. Good. Open your door and tell me what you see. The hallway light's on, she said. Grandma always turns it off at night. I filed that away. Anyone in the hallway? No, just the light. All right, walk toward the living room. Her footsteps sounded small and hollow through the phone. I could picture the hallway, the family photos I'd hung, the mirror my mother always complained about, the runner rug I'd bought on sale between night shifts. All of it mine. All of it paid for with exhausted bones. I'm in the living room, she said. The TV's off. Grandpa's blanket is gone. My heart rate picked up. Is the tree on? We'd decorated it last week. Me, Zara, and Quinn, while Owen pretended he was too cool and still fought for the top ornament. She paused. Yeah. The lights are on, but there's no coffee cup. Grandpa always has coffee. It was such a small detail, but something about it made my stomach turn. Okay, I said. Let's check the driveway. Just peek through the curtain. She patted over, and I heard the soft hiss of fabric moving. Mom, she said, voice shrinking. Grandma's car is gone. And Grandpa's truck. And Aunt Sam's car, too. So, not a quick coffee run. I took a slow breath. All right. Remember they were talking about leaving early for the beach resort? Maybe they just... Without me? She said. They didn't wake me up. They didn't say anything. That part lodged in my throat. Maybe there's a note, I said, clinging to whatever script I could find. Check the kitchen table. Sometimes people leave notes when they go out. This was the moment where, in a different family, the note would say something like, ran to the store, back soon, love you, eat the cookies. I listened as she walked. I'm in the kitchen, she said. There's a paper here, like a ripped-out notebook page. My pulse started to thud. Pick it up, I said. What does it say? She rustled paper, took a breath, and read, stumbling over the first word. We needed a break from you. Don't call. The hotel room went very, very quiet. Not because there was no noise. It was full of humming AC, distant doors slamming, someone laughing down the hall. But inside my head, everything went silent and sharp. I pressed my fingers into my forehead. That's all it says? Yes. Her voice cracked. Mom, did I do something bad? No, I said immediately. Absolutely not. That note is wrong. They were wrong to leave it. And they were wrong to leave you. I walked to the tiny window and stared out at a generic parking lot, just to have something to look at that wasn't my own reflection. Okay, I said. We're going to do a quick sweep. Stay on the line. Check Grandma and Grandpa's room. Her footsteps dragged a little now. "Grandma's bed is made," she said after a second. "Her suitcase is gone. Grandpa's too. There's dust where his boots were." I forced a breath. "Okay. Check Samantha's room." She walked down the hall. A pause, then, "Her suitcase is gone too, and the kids' stuff. Owen's Switch isn't here, and Quinn's unicorn is gone." A tiny inhale. "They always take those when we go somewhere." Of course they took Quinn's unicorn, but not Zara. I sat back on the edge of the bed because if I didn't, I was going to fall. "All right," I said. "I'm going to try calling Grandma. Stay on the line with me, just be quiet for a minute." I put Zara on mute and dialed my mother. Straight to voicemail. My father. Voicemail. Samantha. Voicemail. Not even a ring. Not even a half-hearted, "Sorry, can't talk right now." I unmuted Zara. "Okay. I'm still here." "I knew it," she whispered. "They went to the beach without me." Her voice did something to me then. It wasn't the crying. I'd heard her cry before. This was quieter, flatter, like she was already trying to shrink herself smaller so the world wouldn't notice. I needed another adult. Any adult. Unfortunately, that left me with Reed. Reed wasn't blood, just a longtime friend of the family who'd somehow become a permanent extra in our family group chats and vacations. He had Seinfeld opinions and a talent for always being around when there was free food. I scrolled to his name and hit call. He answered on the second ring, over loud noise, kids shouting, water in the background, what sounded suspiciously like a blender. "Naomi! Hey! Mary! Where are my parents?" I asked. He hesitated. They're around?" "Try again." I heard someone in the background ask. "Is that Naomi?" Then lower. "Don't just give me the phone." Reed's voice dropped. "They said you knew." "Reed," I said, each word precise. "Where are they? And where is my daughter supposed to be right now?" He exhaled. "We're at the resort. They left early to beat the traffic. Your mom said Zara would be fine for a few hours. Samantha said she needed a break because Zara's been, quote, extra. They were going to pick her up later, I think. Or maybe, if you finish that sentence, I am going to come to that resort and remove your larynx with a plastic spoon." He made a small, terrified noise. "Look, I just tagged along, okay? I didn't make the plan." "You still came," I said. I hung up before I said something a medical board might frown on. "Mom?" Zara asked. "Are you still there?" "Yes," I said. "I'm here, and I'm coming home." "But you're at work," she whispered. "I don't care. I checked the time. If I left now, I could maybe be on a flight before 8. Maybe be home before noon. Maybe. "Listen," I said. "I'm going to call Mrs. Martin. She's coming over to stay with you until I get there, okay?" Our neighbor, Mrs. Martin, was the kind of retired school teacher who had a key to everyone's house and a sixth sense for when kids needed cookies or boundaries. Zara loved her. I trusted her. "Don't open the door for anyone except her," I said, "and keep the house locked." "Okay," Zara sniffed. "I'll stay on the phone until she gets there," I said. I switched to three-way calling and rang Mrs. Martin. She picked up on the second ring, bless her. "Naomi? Is everything all right?" "No," I said, "but it will be. I need a favor. Big one." I explained in 3 sentences. Her voice got sharper with each one. "I'll be there in 5 minutes," she said. "Zara, sweetie, I'm coming right now. Don't be scared. You're not alone. Okay?" "Okay," Zara whispered. When I heard the front door open on Zara's end and Mrs. Martin's voice in the background, some small clenched part of me unclenched. I pulled up the airline app with shaking hands. The earliest flight home left in 1 hour and 40 minutes. The hospital had booked me into a hotel near the other city's airport, not ours, so I still had about 45 minutes drive to get there. In other words, no margin. At all. I booked it anyway. Holiday pricing, last minute. One way. My phone buzzed with the confirmation and my bank account quietly panicked. I yanked clothes on, shoved my things into my carry-on, and left half my life strewn across the hotel room. Housekeeping could keep the moisturizer and the dignity. "Zara," I said, switching back to her call as I ran through the hallway. "I'm on my way to the airport right now. Mrs. Martin is there with you, right?" "Yeah," she said. I could hear the TV murmuring in the background, cartoons turned up too loud. "She's making hot chocolate." "Good," I said. "Stay with her. I'll call from the airport. Okay?" Traffic was already building. Christmas Eve. Everyone going somewhere they actually wanted to be. My leg bounced as we inched forward. By the time I arrived at the airport, my heart had been hammering for so long it felt like background noise. I sprinted through the terminal, cut through the snaking security line with enough desperation in my eyes that they waved me ahead, and made it to the gate as they were announcing final boarding. "You're cutting it close," the agent said, scanning my boarding pass. "My daughter is home alone," I said, "because my family forgot what the word family means." Something in my voice must have landed. She just nodded and gestured me through. When I finally arrived home, Zara ran out, hair flying, socks slipping on the porch. She slammed into me so hard I stumbled back a step. "I'm here," I kept saying into her hair. "I'm here. I've got you. I'm here." She pulled back just enough to look up at me, eyes red and wide. "Mom," she whispered, "did I do something wrong?" There are moments in medicine where you know, instantly, that if you screw up even a little, someone dies. This felt like that. Except the patient was my kid's sense of being wanted. I cupped her face in my hands. "No, you did nothing wrong." "They did." "The note is on the kitchen table," Mrs. Martin said quietly. "I haven't let her look at it again." I took the note, read it with my own eyes. "We needed a break from you. Don't call." They hadn't even bothered to sign it. My parents, my sister, the people who'd wept when she was born, fought over who got to hold her first, called her our little miracle every time she coughed. I folded the note and slid it into my bag. Evidence. Souvenir. I didn't know yet. I slipped the note into my bag and held Zara a little tighter. They had no idea what they'd set in motion. And 4 days from now, they'd walk into that house and regret everything. It didn't start with the note on the table. I wish it had. I wish there had been one big moment I could point to and say, "There. That's where everything cracked." But things like this don't break at once. They wear down slowly, like a hinge you stop noticing until the door falls off. I'm the oldest. Samantha is the youngest. That alone should tell you most of the story. I was the one who remembered bills, appointments, birthdays. She was the one who remembered fun. Our parents encouraged the arrangement. Naomi's responsible, Samantha's spirited. Those labels became our job descriptions. By the time I finished medical school, I'd been holding things together for so long it felt normal. My parents were proud of me, yes, but also very comfortable with the idea that responsible meant available for emotional labor, financial help, childcare, you name it. When I finally bought my house after residency, they were the ones who suggested moving in to help with Zara. Zara was 5 then, and Jason, my ex-husband, was halfway out the emotional door already. The offer felt like stability, so I said yes. It didn't take long to realize I'd invited 2 extra adults to live in my home while I worked 60-hour weeks. Then Samantha moved in too, after a breakup left her with 2 kids, Owen and Quinn, and nowhere affordable to go. One temporary week turned into months. Months turned into years, and somehow I was the only person paying for anything. Mortgage, utilities, internet, streaming, groceries, insurance. If it had a bill, it had my name on it. If I brought it up gently, my mother clutched her chest and said, "We're doing our best. Besides, you make more than any of us ever did." Maybe that was true. But respect doesn't cost money, and somehow that was always the thing in shortest supply. Worse than the finances was how they treated Zara. She's sensitive. The thoughtful kind, the kind who feels things deeply and notices every shift in tone. My family treated that like a flaw. My mother called her too delicate. My dad added dramatic. Samantha said she needed to toughen up, as if 9-year-olds should come with built-in armor. If Zara got overwhelmed at dinner, they teased her. If she cried at a sad commercial, they sighed. Once, she told my mother she didn't like loud voices, and my mother laughed and said, "Well, you picked the wrong family, didn't you?" That one stuck with me for weeks. I tried stepping in, but every time I did, they accused me of spoiling her or projecting from my job. The irony of being told how to parent my child by people who wouldn't buy toothpaste without asking first is not lost on me. Still, I believed in family. I believed in the idea that even flawed people can show up when it matters. So when Samantha suggested the Christmas beach trip months ago, a big family thing, all of us together, I said yes, even though money was tight. Even though I'd have to join them later because I'd been assigned to a mandatory Christmas Eve shift in another city. They insisted they'd take good care of Zara, that she'd be surrounded by people who loved her. The night before I left, Zara said quietly, "Sometimes they're mean, and I don't know why." I hugged her and told her she was safe. I believed it because I needed to. The next morning, I left for work before sunrise, and while I was stitching up strangers and answering pages, they packed their bags and drove to the beach without her, leaving my 9-year-old daughter behind with nothing but a handwritten note. After I got back and peeled Zara off my coat, the first thing I did wasn't scream or plot or burn the house down. I fed her. She kept insisting she wasn't hungry, but her hands were shaking, and she hadn't eaten more than a few bites of toast with Mrs. Martin. So I made grilled cheese and tomato soup, classic comfort food, doctor-approved therapy, and sat with her until she got halfway through the sandwich. Only then did her eyes stop darting toward the front door like she expected someone to jump out yelling, "Gotcha!" No one did. When Mrs. Martin finally left, with strict instructions to call her if I even thought about needing help, I put Zara in my bed, drew the curtains, turned the TV to something gentle, and watched her fall asleep in minutes. Kids crash hard after fear. Adults just pretend they didn't. I went back to the kitchen. The note sat on the counter like a crime scene exhibit. "We needed a break from you. Don't call." It still didn't feel real. Not because I didn't believe my family capable of cruelty, they'd always been good at that, but because of the sheer effortlessness of it. A torn notebook page, a scribble, a shrug disguised as handwriting. I photographed the note, the empty hooks, the missing toothbrushes, all the quiet evidence they'd packed and left. All of them, except Zara. Document, assess, plan. The triage instinct was automatic. Urgent. Zara. Serious. Detoxing the environment she'd been drowning in. Non-emergent. Everything that wasn't her. When she woke up later, we curled on the couch and watched a movie, one where misunderstandings lead to songs instead of therapy bills. She pressed into my side like she was anchoring herself. "Where do you think they are right now?" she asked. "At the pool," I said. Honesty mattered now. "Do you think they'll come back tonight?" "I think they'll come back when the resort kicks them out," I said. "But you and I won't be here." She blinked up at me. "We're leaving?" "Yes. I said. We're taking our own little vacation. Her eyes lit up, fragile but hopeful. Will there be hot chocolate? There will be hot chocolate until you beg me to stop. She snorted softly. It was almost a laugh. After she fell asleep again, I made calls. First to a colleague who rents a small furnished apartment near the hospital to traveling nurses. I'd covered Thanksgiving for him last year when he got sick. You can have it for as long as you need, he said. I'll text the door code. Next, I called a lawyer friend, someone I'd once stitched up after he lost an argument with a bar stool. He answered like he expected me to say something sarcastic. Instead, I said, I need to get people out of my house. Instant silence. They paying rent? He asked. No. Lease? No. They get mail there? Yes. Okay, they're licensees. You can revoke permission to stay. Put it in writing. Give them a short deadline. After that, you start the eviction process if they're still squatting. Can I post the notice while they're gone? It's ideal. Less drama. A beat. Naomi? You all right? Getting there, I said. The next morning, Christmas Day, I told Zara to pack her favorite things. Clothes, books, stuffed fox, the little lamp she loved. I packed the rest. School supplies, comfort items, the drawings she'd taped to her wall. We're not coming back? She asked. We are, I said. But not with them. Her lip wobbled. Like the note? No, not like the note. They left you to get a break. I'm taking you to get safe. She nodded slowly, and we loaded everything into my car. Then came the last step. I walked the house one final time. I didn't touch their sentimental junk or strip their rooms bare. I didn't throw anything out the window, tempting. I didn't retaliate. I just printed 3 copies of the notice. Effective immediately, your permission to reside in this property is revoked. You have 7 days to remove your belongings. Failure to do so will result in formal eviction proceedings. Do not contact Zara. Communications go through me only. I signed my name. 1 copy went on the kitchen table, the exact spot where their note had been. 1 on the inside of the front door. 1 on my parents' bed. Then I locked up, checked the windows, set the alarm, and walked out with my daughter's small hand wrapped around mine. The apartment was tiny. Squeaky couch, thin walls, the kind of kitchen where you can stand in one spot and touch everything. But it was quiet. It was ours. That night, Zara and I sat on an air mattress eating takeout pad thai and watching cartoons on my laptop. Is this just for Christmas? She asked. We'll see, I said. How do you feel here? She looked around thoughtfully. It's small. Yeah. But it's nice, she added. No one yelling at the TV. Right? I said. Football was a personality in that house. She giggled, small but real, and for the first time in a long time, the silence felt peaceful instead of dangerous. Somewhere, hours away, my family was probably complaining about overpriced poolside drinks and sunburn. I didn't care. For the first time in years, I could hear myself think, and Zara could breathe. They came back 4 days later. I knew the moment it happened because my phone started ringing over and over again. Not just once or twice, the kind of calling pattern people have when they're panicking and want you to fix something for them. I didn't answer. Zara and I were sitting at the little table in the apartment, coloring together. She wasn't talking much, but she didn't look frightened anymore. Just tired. And she kept glancing up at me every few minutes, checking that I was still there. My phone buzzed again. This time I answered, because I needed to hear their voices, not rely on imagination. It was my mother. Naomi? She said, breathless. Where are you? Where is Zara? Why is the house empty? I kept my tone steady. She's with me. She's safe. There was a small, stunned pause, and then my father's voice rose in the background. Not yelling, just startled and angry in a way I knew too well. "She took her. She took the girl and left the house." My mother's voice came back, strained. "Why would you do this? We came home and everything was silent. We didn't know what happened." "I left a notice," I said. "On the table." "We saw it," she said, her voice tightening. "It says you're removing us from the house. Surely that can't be real." "It is," I said quietly. My father came onto the line fully then. "Naomi, you can't just throw your family out. We've lived there for years." "You've lived in my home for years," I corrected gently. "And you left my daughter alone without telling me. You didn't check on her. You didn't call her. You left her to wake up and find an empty house." "That's not fair," my mother said softly. "We were coming back." "When?" I asked. "After breakfast at the resort? After a swim? After you remembered she existed?" She didn't answer. For a moment, all I heard through the line was quiet arguing between my parents and Samantha. Not shouting, more like three people scrambling to explain something to themselves before explaining it to me. Finally, Samantha's voice broke through. "Naomi, this is being blown out of proportion. We didn't mean for her to be scared. We just needed space. And you work so much. We thought she'd be fine." I let out a long breath. She was not fine. She was terrified. She thought something happened to all of you. She thought she'd done something wrong. And you didn't leave her a plan. You left her a note telling her not to call you. "It wasn't meant like that," my mother whispered. "I know what you meant," I said. "But I have to look at what it did." There was a soft sound on the other end, almost like she was crying but trying not to. Part of me hurt hearing it, but another part, the part that held Zara while she trembled, stayed firm. "You have 6 days to move your things out," I said. "I won't argue about it. I'm not changing my mind." "Naomi," my father said, voice heavy, "you're tearing this family apart." I closed my eyes. "Dad, I'm holding my family together. Mine is Zara and me. That's it right now." No shouting followed, just stunned silence. Then I ended the call. They didn't stop trying, of course. The messages came in waves: confusion, hurt, frustration, little attempts to tug on guilt. I didn't respond. I focused on Zara, on making the apartment feel familiar. We cooked simple meals, watched movies, arranged her things neatly around the small bedroom. Every night she slept a little deeper. A few days later, on my way into the hospital, they tried showing up in person. A nurse pulled me aside. "Your family is out front," she said. "Do you want me to walk you around the back?" I almost said yes, but avoidance only works for so long. "I'll talk to them," I said. They stood near the main entrance, my parents and Samantha together. They looked different, smaller somehow. My mother's coat wasn't buttoned properly. Samantha's hair was in a messy bun, not the usual picture-perfect style she always insisted on. My father looked tired in a way I hadn't seen before. My mother stepped toward me first. "Naomi, we just want to understand." "That's fair," I said gently. "I'll explain, but only if you listen." They all nodded. "You left Zara alone," I said. "You didn't tell me. You didn't check on her. She woke up terrified. She thought she was the problem." My mother let out a soft, broken sound. "I never meant for her to think that." "I know you didn't," I said. "But that's what happened." Samantha crossed her arms. "We were overwhelmed, Naomi. We watched 3 kids, you know." "I know," I interrupted. "But Zara is not a burden you get to put down because you're tired. She's a child, my child, and she deserves to feel safe." My father rubbed his forehead. "So that's it? We're just out on the street?" "No," I said. You have a week to find a place. You're adults. I trust you can manage. They exchanged looks, uncomfortable, resistant, but also resigned. My mother sighed first. We really didn't think it through, she said softly. We thought you'd calm down after a day or two. I'm not angry, I said. I'm done. There was no yelling, no dramatic exit, just a quiet understanding that something had broken long before this, and I was finally refusing to hold the pieces together alone. By the end of the week, they moved out. Not gracefully, but they managed. Mrs. Martin gave the occasional update, but I stopped asking for them. I didn't need to know who was angry at whom or which piece of furniture didn't fit in the rental. That part of the story wasn't mine anymore. Zara and I went back to the house a few days later. It felt different, quiet in a peaceful way this time, not in a lonely way. She walked from room to room, touching familiar objects as if checking they were still hers. This is really our house now? She asked. Yes, I said. Ours, and we set up her room together. Fairy lights, drawings, the fox bedsheets she chose. She asked if we'd ever let them come back. Not unless you want to, I said, and only in ways that feel safe. She thought about that, then nodded. That night we made pasta and watched fireworks on TV. She fell asleep on my lap long before midnight. I looked around the room. The same house, but lighter, somehow. Quieter. Ours. And for the first time in a long time, the future felt like something we got to choose. Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.